and welcome to a new episode of Legal Wrangle on Indirect Taxes. Our first case today relating to cenvat credit on service tax is a decision by the Authority for Advance Ruling rendered in favour of the applicant. Other cases relate to allowability of cenvat credit on job work items, mandatory pre-deposit under the Central Excise Act, detention of a person to prevent him from smuggling activities in future, and vivisection of work contracts. The two applicants before the authority, GSPL India Transco Limited and GSPL India Gasnet Limited, are subsidiaries of the public sector company Gujarat State Petronet Limited. The question raised by these applicants was, can the assessee avail benefit of cenvat credit of service tax paid by EPC contractor and other service providers against the assessee's output service tax liability for transport of gas through pipelines? Prabjot has the case details for us.
The applicant, for the purpose of laying the gas pipeline, would grant various turnkey contracts or EPC contracts. These EPC contractors would essentially provide the service of welding together the steel pipes and valves issued free of cost by the applicant. Such pipes, once connected to each other, would be referred as pipelines, which were to be installed and commissioned along identified routes in order to connect the source to the destination.
The authority agreed that a pipeline is used for the output service of transportation of gas, which cannot be done economically without pipelines. It also confirmed that pipes and valves are capital goods, but the input service to be rendered by the applicant was not for support of pipes and valves, but for laying of pipeline for transport of gas. The authority held in favour of the applicant and allowed cenvat credit of service tax that would be paid by the EPC contractor and other service providers against the applicant's output service tax liability. However, the exception was service tax paid vis-a-vis construction services for civil works package for building pipeline substations, which was excluded. Our second case relates to transfer of electricity generated in the captive power plant to the power grid for synchronization, which was received back by the assessee in its factory. The assessee is Jindal Stainless Ltd, engaged in the manufacture of steel slabs, ingots and blooms. Let's have the case details.
The assessee had set up a captive power plant in its factory for generation of electricity for factory, with some power being sent to the power grid or Haryana State Electricity Board. The assessee had availed the benefit of cenvat credit on inputs, input service and capital goods. Revenue sought recovery of cenvat credit wrongly availed on the fuel used in the generation of electricity cleared. The Commissioner of Central Excise confirmed the demand and imposed equivalent penalty and interest.
Sestat held in favour of the assessee that there was no sale of electricity being made to the power grid. The electricity sent to the power grid for synchronization may be treated as job worker, which when returned to the assessee and used in the manufacture of the final product was well within the purview of Rule 4 of the Rules 2004. Therefore, the cenvat credit availed by the assessee need not be reversed.
After Industrial Revolution, the digital revolution which all of us are experiencing today is the next big phenomenon. And it is undoubtedly changing, rather expanding the contours of our existence, whether we live in cities or hinterland. And e-commerce happens to be the heart of this phenomenon. Whether we realize it or not, e-commerce is increasingly becoming an inevitable part of our daily life. However, this rapidly emerging industry is not without its own share of troubles, regulatory, fiscal and many more. Watch out for our episode of Simply Intoxicating E-Trouble Other in E-Commerce for an incisive analysis of all such issues by the domain experts.
In our third case, the key issue before the High Court was whether mandatory pre-deposit under the amended Section 35F of Central Excise Act would be applicable to cases made prior to the amendment. The assessee company is Fifth Avenue Sourcing, engaged in the business of sourcing orders for foreign buyers to procure Indian garments. Prabjot has the facts of the case.
Revenue, while dealing with the taxability of trade margin earned in convertible foreign exchange, had raised a statement of demand against the assessee, without following the ratio already decided in its own case by High Courts of Andhra Pradesh and Kerala. These courts had allowed filing of appeal without payment of pre-deposit of 7.5%.
The Madras High Court held that for the purpose of accrual of right of appeal, the relevant date is the date of initiation of assessment and not the decision itself. The High Court also observed that the assessment in this case was made before the amendment of 35F of Central Excise Act. This amendment was not given retrospective effect and therefore the amended provisions are prospective. In our fourth case, the key issue before the Bombay High Court was whether a person may be detained in the absence of any subjective satisfaction of the detaining authority just to prevent him from engaging in smuggling activities in future. The detenue is an individual, Bittu Harchandani. Let's hear the case details.
Assorted foreign currency was seized from the detenue's baggage at the time of boarding at Mumbai airport. Consequently, he was arrested on the alleged ground of his attempt to smuggle foreign currency out of India. The detenue furnished a bail bond before the competent magistrate with an understanding not to leave the country without prior written permission of the court. The detenue submitted before the High Court that the detention order is vitiated by non-application of mine and there is variance between the grounds on which the order is based and the subjective satisfaction recorded therein.
The High Court held in favour of revenue by observing that the detenue had neither surrendered his passport nor was it taken in custody by the passport authority. Therefore, there was a definite apprehension that the detenue would use it to smuggle foreign currency out of India. The High Court also observed that the detenue's rights, as guaranteed by Article 22 of the Constitution of India, are in no way infringed on account of such detention. The detention order did not suffer from any legal infirmity.
One of the major challenges for both the trade and industry and also tax consultant or chartered accountant or a tax advocate is tax compliance. Case laws reported by TIOL. For the year 2012, TIOL reported 2,150 SISTAT orders and 1,100 High Court judgments. For the year 2013, TIOL reported 2,200 SISTAT orders and 1,200 High Court judgments. For the year 2014, it reported 3,100 SISTAT orders and 2,600 High Court judgments. For the year 2015, for 6 months, TIOL reported 1,500 SISTAT orders and 1,600 High Court judgments. Last year, TIOL reported 7,100 judicial decisions, including 3,100 SISTAT orders and 2,600 High Court orders. In the first 6 months of 2015, TIOL has already crossed 4,300 mark and has reported about 1,500 SISTAT orders so far. This clearly is an indicator that one thing is certain, that is, disputes will always move northwards, come what may. Nonetheless, the fact remains that it is an uphill task for every taxpayer or a tax practitioner to keep a close track of the latest in the field of taxation, be it the case laws or, for that matter, the elusive notification or instruction or the board circular. Over the years, TIOL has developed a penchant for doing this job, and that too rather successfully. To make your life easier and your search for the relevant case laws and other documents a pleasant experience, TIOL provides widely acclaimed e-library on indirect tax, and it is known as XQs, which stands for Central Excise, Customs, Service Tax and Exit. What all our XQs contains? Union Budget 2015-16 and Finance Acts since 1998. Supreme Court and High Court judgments, SISTAT orders with detailed headnotes and analysis. First of its kind, Case Law Parallel Citation Search. Taxman Pitara, Central Excise Act, Tariff and Rules plus Customs Act, Tariff and Rules, Central Excise and Customs Notifications and Circulars since 1986. updated foreign trade policy and handbook of procedures, ITC HC classification and SION norm, RBI circulars, notifications and master circulars on exports and imports, special economic zones, acts, rules, notifications and instructions, allied acts, rules and regulations, updated Finance Act 1994, Service Tax Act, Service Tax notifications and circulars, detailed list of rescinded notifications of customs, Central Excise and Service Tax.
Our last case in this episode is a majority decision of CESTAT. The assessee company is Larsen and Tubro, a service provider. The dispute relates to contracts undertaken by the assessee which were indivisible works contracts comprising of both goods and services. Let's have the case details.
Assessee was registered under the category of Consulting Engineering Service. Subsequently, in the registration certificate, it had incorporated Installation and Commissioning Service with effect from March 2004. The assessee had undertaken 6 contracts on job work basis but not declared the questioned transactions in its service tax returns. Member had rendered a finding that the contracts were divisible on basis of separate prices being identified.
The CESTAT held that a works contract can be vivisected prior to June 2007 and subjected to levy of service tax under erection, installation and commissioning service. The issue was covered in favour of the revenue and against the assessee by the majority decision of the tribunal in the assessee's own case. Thus, it was held that the demand was not time-barred. The third member observed that if the assessee had really carried any bona fide doubt about the taxability of installation and commissioning service, it could have shown it as exempted service in the ST3 returns as filed from time to time. But by not doing so, it had certainly suppressed material facts from the department. Well, this brings us to the end of this episode of Legal Wrangle on Indirect Tax. You may write to us your comments, criticism and counsel at editor@tioltube.com. Please do subscribe to TIOL Tube to remain updated. It's free and will keep you updated on our new posts. Have a good day.